Hi, it's Katharine here, and today I want to talk to you briefly about one way of thinking that's essential to get right if you're hoping to find a long-term partner. Basically, when you're looking to meet someone special to share your life with, the most important thing you can do is to keep an open mind and not judge people. Now, it won't have escaped your notice that I'm filming this in a library, because as the saying goes, you can't judge a book by its cover, and how true that is. It's the same with people. Now, this sounds obvious, but actually it's quite hard to do, because we all have a natural tendency to make judgments about people in the first few seconds of meeting them or having contact with them. But very, very often in life, and in particular when it comes to relationships, these first impressions can be completely wrong. So it's very important to be aware of how you're thinking and to monitor it closely. Now, for men, the first thing that you probably do when you meet a woman is judge her by her looks. This is quite normal and everyone does it, but there's an interesting thing that happens if you give yourself the chance to get to know someone, whatever they look like. As you discover what someone is like, you'll find that the way they look changes. So if they have a character that, say, for example, is kind, generous and funny, and you get to know that, over time you'll see that in the person more than just seeing the way they look. Similarly, if someone is cruel, selfish and unkind, you'll begin to see that in them more than the way they look. So it's true to say that the way you see someone changes as you get to know them. So yes, although looks are important, they definitely aren't the whole story. If they were the only important thing, no unattractive or ugly people would find a partner, would they? And the reality is that most of us aren't Adonises. Now, there's little you can do about looking at a woman and making an instant judgment about her, but what you can do is to decide to put your initial judgment on hold and get to know her a bit more, and wait and see if your judgment based on her looks alone is the right one. I can guarantee there'll be some prizes ahead if you do this. Now, looks are similar to first impressions generally. Your first impression of someone is just that. It's a first impression, and it's often not the right one. Perhaps you've met someone at a party, or at church, or at a meeting of some sort. You've made an initial judgment about them, and perhaps have gone as far in your thinking to think that they couldn't be the one for you. But when you look at this sort of thinking carefully, it's a bit mad, isn't it? Because you know yourself that you are a complex human being with a background and a history and lots about you that someone couldn't possibly know from just a first meeting. And it's the same with other people. You really can't judge what they are like from a first meeting. Also, if you've met that person in any sort of dating scenario, then there's going to be loads of nerves involved, and that person probably won't have been their true selves at all. Let me tell you a little story of two friends of mine called David and Jill that illustrates this point brilliantly. David and Jill met up on a date and pretty much instantly both decided that they weren't right for each other. That was their first impressions kicking in. They spent a couple of hours together, and both being quite mature people, at the end of the date, they had both said to the other that they weren't interested in the other. Having got on quite well, however, they did say they'd like to stay in touch, and this they did. Having declared no interest in each other, an easy friendship developed between them. About a year into this friendship, Jill realised she was beginning to have stronger and stronger feelings towards David, and she wasn't just feeling like he was a friend any longer. A few months after this, David began to feel the same way, and a few months later they shared their feelings, and it wasn't long after this that they got engaged. Needless to say, the rest is history, and they're incredibly happily married now. This just proves my point that first impressions, judging someone on the way they look or seem to you at first, is a dangerous thing to do. Because if you rely only on those thoughts, you will definitely miss someone who could be right for you. It's basically keeping an open mind to everyone you meet. Because for sure you're meeting people in the course of your everyday life, but you might just be discounting them at first glance and therefore thinking you're not meeting anyone suitable. The same principle arrives if you've joined any sort of dating agency and are getting in touch with people whose profiles you've seen. Be aware that you can't really know what someone is like from a written profile. Firstly, they may not have spent much time getting their profile right. So there may be masses more to them than you are reading at first. Secondly, even if they have spent time crafting their profile, it's only words, and no amount of words can really get the true essence and the full essence of someone's character across. It's really important not to take everything people say about themselves as set in stone. If someone says they're looking for someone who has a great sense of humour and loves the outdoors, then don't assume they won't want to get to know you if you can't crack jokes the whole time and don't spend much time doing outdoor pursuits. You may have other attributes that they'd value and appreciate, but just haven't mentioned. The final thing I'm going to share with you is something about faith. It's important not to be too rigid in looking for people from the same denomination as yourself. Be careful that your preconceived ideas about what one denomination is like don't stop you from contacting someone who belongs to that denomination. Your thoughts about it may not be correct, or the person who goes to that particular church may not fit the stereotype. You can't really judge someone's faith just by what denomination they belong to. Rather, talk to them first and find out if your preconceived ideas are correct. You may be in for some surprises, and if you let your prejudices stop you from contacting someone who is from a different denomination from you, or from one you're less familiar or comfortable with, you may be missing out on a friendship or relationship that could be perfect for you. So there's quite a bit to take in there, but I hope you found this food for thought. You probably won't be able to change your natural instincts of judging someone on first impressions, because as I said, that's normal and we all do it. But what you can do is be aware of and change what you do with those first impressions. You can be aware of your thinking, and once you're aware of it, you can make sure you act in a different way to what you've done before. This will open up all sorts of opportunities to you, and you might be amazed at who you get to know as a result. Well, I hope you found this little video useful. Let me know your thoughts about it. Goodbye for now.